Hello, my dear friends. Have you seen the last community stand-up? They've shown my video.
A YouTube video by Patrick. This is going over some of the new project templates that we have for Blazor and .NET 8. So if you're looking for like a nice overview of all these new things that are coming up, I think this is a good video to take a look at.
Patrick God, is that his last name? Mr.
God.
Wow.
But I wasn't sure if it was like...
That sets a high bar for expectations.
Thank you so much for doing that. This really means the world to me. And if you watched the community stand-up, then you know that we've got a lot to talk about. And in this video, I want to talk about again about the new Blazor Web App Template and also about the somehow new Blazor Standalone template. So what has changed? There's one really big thing, and I'm not talking about authentication, although I want to show you that as well, but I'm actually talking about all that ASP.NET Core hosted stuff. So if you're used to developing your apps with Blazor WebAssembly ASP.NET Core hosted, this is somehow gone, meaning the architecture that you're used to is gone. So now we see everything looks pretty much like Blazor Server. But if you want to use Blazor WebAssembly additionally, then you have this one additional project. And that's in essence then ASP.NET Core hosted. So what does that mean? I will show you that in the video. And if you like it and learned something, you know the drill. Please, guys, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel. This would also mean the world to me. So thank you very much for that. And also thank you so much to all my patrons supporting me and my work, this channel, everything else. So if you want to support me too, then check out the link in the video description. There is my Patreon page. Thank you very much for considering. And by the way, sorry for the mess behind me. We are not moving. I'm building a new machine and this does take time and it does not work. See the graphics card, new case, new screen. And you know, with a new baby at home, it's the perfect time to, well, build a new machine. Of course, I'm not sleeping anyways. So let's start with the tutorial. There you have it. Download .NET 8 and here's .NET 8 RC2, release candidate 2. And in pretty much a month, more or less, I think it will be November 14th, 2023, we will get the final release of .NET 8. But, you know, with release candidate 2, it's pretty much already everything done, I guess. So, well, we'll see, because from RC1 to RC2, some things, important things have changed, and we will have a look at them now in this video here. Here's now also the blog post. Maybe you already saw that, and this is the stuff we're going to talk about today. Well, not everything. I really want to focus on the new template changes. The global interactivity already says it, meaning that you can choose if you want to add interactivity with a server or client per page component or globally. So this is interesting. They also changed the attributes regarding the render mode. So we will see that. And I already told you in the intro, they've changed the Blazor WebAssembly template. So there's now a WebAssembly standalone app template. So let's have a look at that as well. Here you see it again, file scope render mode. You can set this globally, and they changed the attributes. They still work. So if you already played around with .NET 8 Blazor, maybe you've already used add attribute and then the render modes, but now you can simply do it like that. Add render mode, interactive server, WebAssembly, and auto. And this is actually also different now. This interactive server, the term itself, interactive server, WebAssembly, and auto. Before it was, I think, simply render mode, server, WebAssembly. So render mode dot server, WebAssembly, and auto. Doesn't really matter anymore because they changed it. Now, of course, we've got some stuff like enhanced navigation and, well, you see it here, form model binding improvements, lots and lots of stuff, HTTP context. But the one thing that I want to show you in this video as well is this here, Blazor Identity UI. Stuff we as the Blazor and .NET developers wanted for a long time. Blazor components, in essence, for identity. So now if you want to, you can get them, but let's have a look at them and then you can tell me if you like them. So let's just start. Here's now Visual Studio 2022 Preview 3. And as you can already see, we've got the Blazor Web App Template, everything in here now. And we also have, let's just search for Blazor. We also have the new Blazor WebAssembly standalone app. You see it here still, Blazor WebAssembly app empty, server app. This is the old stuff. So this is not where we are heading actually with the .NET framework. Microsoft wants us to work with the Blazor Web App Template and the Blazor WebAssembly Standalone app. And maybe let's just start with that thing here. Blazor App 9, well, WebAssembly Standalone, maybe. We hit next. And as you can see, what can we choose from? Well, there's the authentication type. That's nice. We have configure for HTTPS, progressive web application, include sample pages. So this is the, here you can decide if you want to use the empty template actually, or you want to use the sample components and other stuff that you maybe already know. But what we're missing is the option ASP.NET Core hosted. This is gone for the Blazor WebAssembly Standalone app. So when we create this thing, we only see that, right? I already talked about the changes in this template in my other video, the video they've shown in the community stand-up. Again, thank you so much for that. So, and here now you see this changed. You've got a components folder where you see a layouts folder, then a pages folder where everything is. The files changed a little bit. So this is now Blazor WebAssembly Standalone. The great thing is you can still use that if you want to use a static web app in Azure, for instance, right? So this works then. And of course, if you want to, you can add a .NET Web API here in that solution, whatever you want to. So you can still use it to build the older structure with .NET 7 that you're probably used to, meaning you've got a web API, which is also the starting project. And this is then in essence the server, right? With your controllers and so on. With Swagger UI, you can test your web API there. And then you've got a shared project with all the models and also the client project. And then the client and the server project, meaning the web API and the Blazor project, can share the models. Great stuff, really love that. And you see it here, the old loading screen. Now, when you played around with .NET 8 and Blazor, you actually never want to see that loading screen again, because you can use Blazor Server for that in essence. And then if you really need to download the WASM stuff, then, well, you can do that, but without a loading screen, because you can do it in the background actually with the auto mode. But let's see how this works in the future, right? When people build lots and lots of applications with these new render modes. So actually, there's not much to see here. Everything is working, and here let me have a quick look here in the project. There's the new fetch data. Now it's called weather. Yeah, injecting an HTTP client, but here there's simulating somehow web service call, because this is just the sample data here. But as you can see, in the old world, in the old days, let's say, we see that we're making a web service call here. But this is now different with the new Blazor Web App Template, and I already want to know if I'm missing something here. Then please tell me that in the comments directly. Just stop the video, write it in the comments if you see something that I missed. Of course, again, you can build it yourself, but let's just have a look at the new Blazor Web App Template, and then I hope you see what I mean by that. But here now, that's it, right? Blazor Standalone, WebAssembly Standalone. We can build our own old architecture, let's say, but that's everything you get from the template out of the box. So let's have a look again at, I'm looking for the console here and closing that. Let's just create another project now. And here now it's the Blazor Web App Template. This is the one, right? So Blazor App 9, well, maybe Blazor Server App. Let's just leave it at that. It is .NET 8, you know that, Blazor Server App. Because here now, also authentication, but let's have a look at that in the end. Configure for HTTPS, this is nice. And here the interactivity type. Quick recap, with .NET 8 and Blazor, we have static server-side rendering, meaning we can choose, if we set this to none, and I try to explain this in an easy and simple way. Again, I hope you get it. This means that we get static files, let's say the HTML from the server, we render that stuff, and we have no interactivity. Meaning if there is a button, for instance, and we want to click that button, well, we can do so, but nothing will happen, all right? We have no interactivity. Now with server, this is like the old Blazor server. This means we have server-side rendering, but it's not static. We have a WebSocket connection all the time. This, well, it's not 100% correct because you see here per page component and global. Let's just set this to global. And with that, we have the WebSocket connection all the time. So when we click something, this information goes to the server is doing anything, and then we see the changes on the client. But the whole work, the load is on the server. All right. Now WebAssembly is a little bit different. We also have interactivity, but for that we have to download all the WASM files, meaning when we click on a button, something is happening, but we send also this information. Well, we can send this information to the server that we clicked a button, the server can do something, or we just do everything on the client, meaning, for instance, with the counter page that we will see in a minute, this just means that the whole logic can actually run already on the client. The server can lean back, nothing to do. Awesome for the server, right? So if you have lots and lots of users, maybe it's better to use WebAssembly. And there's also the auto mode. Again, talked about that already in my last video if you want to see the details here, but again, we will so many against today. Well, it's complicated, right? I really want to know what you think about the whole changes because it is a lot. You have to think a bit differently with .NET 8 and Blazor. Anything here, it's the mix. This means that we've got server in the beginning, and in the background we're downloading the WebAssembly files, and the next time we visit this page and the browser knows, hey, we already downloaded all that WASM stuff, so we do not need a WebSocket connection actually. Now we can use the WebAssembly stuff. So let's just do that, and the load is on the client. This is in essence everything. Okay, and now here, big change with release candidate 2 of .NET 8. We can choose if you want to have all that, all the choices, the whole logic here, server-side rendering, client-side rendering, or both, globally in our complete app, or per page / component, meaning we can set this on our shared components. For instance, if you want to create a button by yourself, all right, and then you can say, I want that button to be rendered all the time on the client. So then we set that. We say the render mode is for that component is WebAssembly. But if we have a page that we want to render all the time on the server here, then we can do that as well, right? I hope so. Well, I haven't tried it a lot, to be honest, but we'll see. I will definitely build lots and lots of apps with that, and you will see that, or you can see that and do that with me together here on YouTube, of course, if you subscribe to my channel. Choice is yours, and then you will see how this stuff works. Anyways, what I want to do now here, let's just say, does this actually do anything? None per page component globally. I mean, let's just create this, and then we see the sample pages. And as you can see here, this really, okay, now I called it Blazor server app. Sorry about that. This is now actually a Blazor. Well, it's still a Blazor server app, but it's just static server-side rendering, meaning in the pages, you see there's no counter example. Now, why is that? Well, the only thing that is demonstrated here is the weather page. And when we run this, we can also already see the stream rendering feature, which is also pretty nice because now the big thing, where is it? Is it? Yep, no, it's building. Nice. Okay, let me first uncomment the stream rendering attribute. I tried it, but I did it wrong. Okay, and now it is hopefully rebuilding. Yes, nice. Okay, so now let's just have a look. We go to the weather page and also to the network. Oh, and it's not really doing. I'm still so used to the old ASP.NET Core, Blazor WebAssembly, ASP.NET Core hosted architecture, but what this is actually doing is simulating a web service call, let's say, where it just takes some time to display the data. So we actually do nothing here. The only thing that is happening is we can go to that page and you see there's the delay, right? I click here, takes some time, and then I see the data. But now with, okay, short baby duty break, sorry about that. But what I wanted to show you is when we now go to weather, you see the delay, right? So here now, view page source, we have the data here. All right, so that's nice, great for SEO and stuff, but it takes some time to get the data. This sucks really. When we are really taking, or it takes a lot of time to get some data from the database or anything, then it can get on the nerves of our users. So let's change that now. And when we now reload, you see it here, we see this little loading text, and then the data is there. And again, when we have a look here, we also see all that stuff. But when we now go to the console, let's double check with the now on the network tab. We fetch all, we have a look here, weather, and here now we see only the loading screen. So you see the difference here, right? Again, with stream rendering set to false or off, exactly the same thing. Then here now we already see the data, but still this should work for SEO because you get the complete thing from the server, right? The complete HTML in essence. And in the end, you see when we have a look at the page source that we see the data still. So this is the important stuff. That was static server-side rendering. Now let's create another project and let's close this. And now let's choose again Blazor Web App. And here now let's say Blazor Server Global Interactivity. Yeah. And bear with me here. I'm not going to show you every single option here. So server, WebAssembly, per component globally. I just want to show you the differences now to the RC1. So here now we just say, I want to set server interactivity globally. Let's create this. And then we'll see, and we now see the counter page, nothing here, right? When again, you've seen RC1, the changes there, then you know that here was this attribute about setting the render mode for the counter page. Weather here also different, no static or stream rendering set here. Got the home page, there was nothing anyways. But now when we have a look at the app raiser, you see the head outlet where you, for instance, find the title of your tab, right? The window, whatever you want to use. And also here routes, there we see that this thing now is also set, right? So here the render mode is set and the routes, nothing is set. Yep, it's really just here. And with that, you set that stuff globally. And we could also change that, of course. And this is everything that the template does in essence. So here now we could also say interactivity, WebAssembly or auto. All right, so we can do that here. And this is the only change when we say we want to set the render mode globally. So now let's just run this for a quick test. Let's open the console here, go to WebSockets. And for instance, the counter page, we reload. And here now, messages, we click here, we see the messages, right? And we do not actually have to go to the counter page. We can already see here when we just go to the home page that we also have this WebSocket connection. And we go to the weather page, we have this WebSocket connection. Although this is not really necessary, right? We still have it. No interactivity here actually, but still we have it. And that's where this idea comes from, right? I guess that we actually only need interactivity here. So we could say that we only want to see the interactivity with the WebSocket connection here on the counter page. Let's try that. So let me close that thing one more time and create another project. So file, new project, Blazor Web App, go to next. And now let's just say Blazor interactivity per component. We go to next, and now let's just say we use auto because with that we see both, and create. And here now again, the crazy new thing, we have two projects, one for the server and one for the client. So for the Blazor WebAssembly client. And with that, we already have our ASP.NET Core hosted model, because this project here, this is the starting project. This has also all the web API capabilities. So you could create your controllers here if you want to, but it doesn't really make sense because here now, since we're already on the server, we could also create services, access a database with the help of Entity Framework and a data context and all that stuff. But first, let's have a look again at the render modes. So here now, again, this is the app, head outlet, routes, nothing here, no render mode set, right? But here now, when we have a look at not the layouts, the pages, and then the weather. Okay, here we've got the stream rendering. And now here regarding the counter page, we have now the attribute on that page. And this now could be set differently. So now we can say add render mode and then interactive auto render mode, for instance, right? And with that now, what we should see, let's just run this. What we should see is, all right, let's try something else here. What about render mode and then interactive auto? This is what I wanted to. Does this work now? What is actually building? And now let's have a look. So let me just close the other ones. We open the console again. So now it should be the counter, right? So here, when we go to the counter page or access the counter page, we should open a WebSocket connection. All right, so let's have a look. There it is. When we now click the button, we see something is going on here. And yep, we actually see the values. Isn't that nice? And something is happening here, right? So this is great. But also here we see that the WASM files have been downloaded. And when we have a look here at the console, we see also a WebSocket stuff, but also WebAssembly information. And when we now reload that, no WebSocket here. We can double check in again network WebSockets, reload that. No WebSocket connection. This has nothing to do with the WebSocket connection I'm talking about. This is some Visual Studio stuff, actually, you know, hot reload and stuff like that, I think. So this is not the WebSocket connection I'm talking about, but here you see that per component, per page, we can now also set the render modes. It does work. This is the whole magic, okay? And now we really have to think differently, think this through. What do we want actually? What do we want to use? Again, please guys, tell me what you think about that. This is now different. Meaning, and now again, let's talk about architecture. Real quick, I'm currently creating a .NET 8 Web Dev Jumpstart course, which will be available for free. We're going to have a look at web APIs and entity framework there, for instance. And if you want to be the first to know when this thing is available, then I recommend just check out the link in the video description and I will send you an email when you can get it. So scroll a bit further down and then you know what to do. And now let's continue with the tutorial. When you say you want to create a Blazor WebAssembly application, for instance, only WebAssembly, what are you going to do? Would you then use the Blazor WebAssembly standalone template, for instance, and then add a web API project and a class library project for your shared library, let's say? Would you start with an empty solution and then in essence do the same, meaning create a web API project, then the Blazor standalone project, and then the shared project, because you can still do that, of course. But the big question is, does this make sense? Because now with this new, with these new features where you can set the render modes, because this is actually the core thing, you can set the render modes per page component and globally, and then have the logic in these two projects here. And again, they're thinking about merging these projects together. Not sure about that. Does this work? Does it not work? There is an issue on GitHub where you can look this up and read what Steve Sanderson, the man behind, the legend behind Blazor in essence, what he thinks about that. What are the options? But again, I want to know from you, what do you think about that? Because here now, what I loved about the old architecture really was that I had my Swagger UI out of the box. I could test the backend, the web API, and then just create my services on the backend, but also services on the client. And then, well, just add the HTTP calls and everything's fine. So I started with the backend and so on. And now here, this is a bit differently. Now here, the idea, or my idea, is to maybe use a layered architecture, meaning, of course, we could start here and I'll say, okay, we create a new folder for our services, for instance. We could then also add a new folder for the data access layer, meaning we could put our data context here and so on. Or what you could also do is we just say, you know what, let's move that into another project, right? In this case, we would just create a class library. And here we would then say, okay, this is now our services layer, for instance, or the business logic layer, whatever you want to call it. Or we go even one step further and introduce clean architecture here. And then you would have yeah, what would we have? We would have the presentation layer with definitely the client project here, but also the Blazor server project, because this is still, of course, the presentation, and then have all the other layers like the domain, infrastructure, persistence, and so on. So I'm asking you, what would your way to build your new Blazor web applications be? Would you use that? Would you use Blazor Standalone, add the other stuff? Would you just keep it like that and use the server project, the client project, and again, just use folders to somehow decouple, or let's just say organize that, because with that, everything is really coupled in my opinion. So since I'm really used to the ASP.NET Core hosted Blazor WebAssembly architecture, I like the simple decoupled approach. And here now with Blazor Server, putting everything in here, meaning the components, so really the UI together with services. I'm not a big fan of that. For small applications, of course, you can do it like that. But even for small ones, at least I would use class libraries to make it a bit cleaner, at least. And additionally, what you now have to do is when you add your services here, just there, for instance, or in the class library, it doesn't really matter. You have to register them here. All right, so you know that builder, services, add scoped, add transient, whatever. And if you want to use them here as well, you have to register them there as well, right? So this is something to remember. But still, what you do not have to do is make HTTP calls, except of course you have another public API where then the address of course is totally different. Then you would make your HTTP calls. But what would not make sense, in my opinion, is to add a web API, another web API with controllers and so on, and then the Blazor server project here would make these calls to that web API, because I mean, we are already on the server, so maybe that, well, it's actually too much, right? So these are just my 2 cents about the architecture. Please, again, please tell me what you think about that. And I promised you one more thing. We've got authentication, but I'm probably doing another video about that anyways. But quick look here. Let me just close that again. We create a new project, Blazor Web App, call that Blazor Auth maybe. And here now we choose individual accounts. With that, this is identity regarding the interactivity type. Now you have the options here. Let's just say this is a server app per page component. We create this thing. We do not save that. And now here you see it. It's just one project. Again, it's Blazor server, right? But now we have some additional stuff here. Data for, see, this is what I was talking about. This is now our, in essence, entity framework stuff. We have our application DB context. If you're already used to identity, you know that we derive from the identity DB context. And we can add a user, a custom user here, but they're not adding anything here actually. So you could just use the identity user here, right? So if you do it like that, pretty much the same thing, or just leave it like that, then also the identity user is used for that. But here, let's say application user. So now we can add more properties in here. That's great. We've got a user access. Really, I don't want to go into that for now for this video. We've got our migrations. We have to run these migrations to make this work. Didn't really work out of the box in my case, but again, it's still RC2. They will change some stuff, of course, and fix that. And we've got extensions. All right, but the important or the brand new stuff is we have components here and also pages. And now, hope you're sitting on your chair. Boom, there are all the pages for registering, logging in, forgot password, and so on. So let's just run this and then we see how this looks. There we are. We've got our register page, for instance. This is nice. Login as well. Again, when I try that and say tony@stark.com and my top secret password, register, we get the should get the migrations error. When I want to apply this, it's not working, although it's just a local DB here. So haven't played around with that a lot, but I am definitely missing something here. So, but it will work. In the community stand-up, it did work. So this is, in essence, this is already really, really great, because we do not have some old MVC pages here. We have our Blazor pages, but what I don't like about that is just scroll a bit further down. Edit form is great, but then there's, well, lots of logic in here. And in my opinion, you could clean that up a little, right? Add maybe code behind, but maybe also add services for that or something like that, right? But of course, you can do that yourself. Great thing is this is wonderful start if you want to use identity with Blazor. Now you've got your pages here and you can use them already, change them and so on. But of course, it's a lot to dive into. So anyways, you have it here. Again, what you think about that? I will definitely make another video about that. Do you want me to create another video? That would be interesting, of course. And yeah, talk about that, dive a bit deeper, because if you again know identity a little, you pretty much already know the user manager, the sign-in manager, what's going on there. And now we're using all that here in these pages. So this is really nice. You see even a two-factor authentication already prepared for you. So really great stuff. Yeah, and that's actually everything for now, for this video. Of course, there are more changes. Enhanced navigation is something to talk about, I guess. And but regarding just the templates, the architecture, and the authentication, what are your opinions about that? Please tell me that in the comments. What video do you want me to make? Do you want to dive deeper into the architecture? Because I'm really thinking about changing my approach to, well, now a layered architecture, at least with the new Blazor Web App Template, or even clean architecture, maybe even with CQRS. Maybe this is something that interests you, not the classical CRUD, but now CQRS would be interesting, right? So again, please tell me that in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button if you learned something. Please also subscribe to my channel. It does make a difference, guys. Thank you very much for that. And again, thank you so much for supporting me, my patrons. I love every single one of you. Check out the link in the video description, and I hope I see you next time. Thanks for watching. Take care.